Leon Carter was 42 years old, and on the morning his wife filed for divorce, he was 3 hours away from signing the largest contract in black-owned consulting history. Brielle had spent 11 years married to a man she quietly decided had a ceiling. And that ceiling, she told her mother, wasn't high enough for the life she deserved. So while Leon sat in his office reviewing a $500 million deal 31 months in the making, a courier was delivering papers that declared his entire company worth $1.2 million. A number Brielle pulled from a conversation 2 years old. A number she never once followed up on. She filed that morning convinced she was escaping a small, struggling firm and a man going nowhere. She had no idea that the man she was divorcing was hours away from making history. And she had absolutely no idea that he had already opened the envelope. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The alarm was set for 6. Leon was already up at 5:47. He sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, elbows on his knees, letting his eyes adjust. The room was quiet. Brielle's breathing was slow and even beside him. She wouldn't move for hours yet. He looked at her for a moment. Then he stood up. The yellow legal pad on the nightstand had 3 pages of margin notes from the night before. He picked it up, tucked it under his arm, and padded down the hall in his socks. The kitchen was his in the mornings, always had been. He measured the coffee the same way every time. 2 level scoops, cold filtered water, no shortcuts. While it brewed, he stood at the counter and read through his notes again, even though he had them memorized. Reading them again was just what he did. It was how he settled himself. Today was the day. 31 months. That was how long Carter Logistics Group had been in negotiations with Veridian Distribution Partners. 31 months of calls, counterproposals, due diligence reviews, and carefully worded revisions. Veridian was one of the largest freight and warehousing companies in the country. They were expanding, aggressively, nationally, and they needed an operations management partner they could trust to run the consulting side of that expansion without dropping a single ball. They had chosen Leon. The contract sitting on his attorney's desk was worth $500 million over 10 years. Exclusive. Signed, it would be the largest deal ever awarded to a black-owned logistics consulting firm in American history. Leon had looked that fact up himself, quietly, 2 weeks ago. He hadn't told anyone. He just needed to know if it was true. It was true. He poured his coffee and stood at the kitchen window. The neighborhood was still dark. A single streetlight threw a pale orange glow across the driveway. His dress shoes were by the front door. He'd been meaning to get them resoled for 2 months and kept forgetting. He made a mental note, knowing he'd probably forget again. He heard Brielle shift upstairs, then silence. He thought about waking her, about sitting at this same counter together and telling her what today actually was, what it meant, what it had taken to get here. He didn't move. He had learned, somewhere in the last few years, not to offer things she wasn't reaching for. She'd asked about Veridian once, maybe twice, always at dinner, always in the tone of someone being polite. He'd answered briefly. She'd nodded and moved on. The last real number he'd mentioned was during a rough quarter almost 2 years ago, when 2 clients had paused their contracts in the same month and cash flow had tightened. He'd said the firm was valued around $1.2 million. She'd said, "That's still something, Leon," in a voice that meant the conversation was over. He hadn't brought up the business with her since. She hadn't asked. He heard her footsteps overhead. Then the soft sound of a door closing. She appeared in the kitchen a few minutes later, which surprised him. She almost never came down before 9. Her hair was wrapped, her silk robe pulled tight. She looked at him with something warm in her eyes, not quite her usual warmth. Something slightly deliberate about it, though he couldn't have said why that word came to mind. "You're up early," she said. "Always am." She smiled. She crossed the kitchen and kissed him on the cheek. A long, soft kiss, her hand resting flat against his chest for just a moment. "Big day?" "Could be," he said. She poured herself a glass of water. "I'm having lunch with Mom today. Probably be gone most of the afternoon." "Sounds good." She looked at him once more, that same slightly too warm expression, and then went back upstairs. Leon stood at the counter. He turned the coffee mug slowly in both hands. He filed the moment away the way he filed everything that didn't have an explanation yet. Quietly, in the back of his mind, behind a door he could open later. Then he rinsed the mug, picked up his legal pad, and went to get his shoes. He allowed himself exactly 10 seconds in the car before he drove. Hands on the wheel, engine running, sitting in the driveway in the dark. He let the full size of the day land on him. The real weight of it, all 31 months compressed into this one morning. He felt it move through his chest like something warm and enormous and entirely his. 10 seconds. Then he backed out of the driveway and drove toward the city. Diana Shaw was already at her desk when Leon walked in at 7:15. That was not a surprise. Diana was always already there. She looked up from her laptop, read his face the way she always did, quickly, thoroughly, without comment, and said, "Outside counsel confirmed the execution copies are ready. 4 sets. Everything's notarized and tabbed." "Good." Leon set his legal pad on his desk and shrugged off his jacket. "Walk me through the final liability language one more time." "Already printed." She slid a folder across the desk without being asked. This was how they worked. No performance, no wasted motion. Just the next right thing. Done correctly, in order. They spent the morning in the conference room with outside counsel. A measured, methodical review that Leon ran like a final inspection. Every clause, every definition, every exhibit attached to the back of the contract. He did not rush. He had not come this far to miss something in the last 8 hours. At some point, someone ordered lunch. Leon ate half a sandwich without tasting it, still reading. By 2:30, everything was airtight. At 2:51, Leon's assistant appeared in the conference room doorway. "Mr. Carter?" A courier came to the house earlier. They rerouted it here because of the alternate address on file. She held out a manila envelope. "Return address is a law firm." Leon looked at the envelope. "Hargrove and Banks, LLC." "Thank you," he said. His voice was even. He took the envelope back to his office and closed the door. He opened it standing at his desk. He read the cover page once. Then he sat down and read the entire document again from the beginning, slowly, the way he read everything that mattered. Brielle Renata Carter versus Leon James Carter. Divorce petition. Filed that morning. He set it down on the desk with both hands. Then he folded his hands on top of it. Then he sat very still. 11 years. The apartment on Peachtree Industrial they could barely afford. Back when Carter Logistics Group was just a name on a business plan and a phone he answered himself. Brielle crying, genuinely crying. The night he landed his first major client, her arms around his neck, saying, "I knew it, I knew it, I knew it." The miscarriage 2 years ago. The way they had sat together in the hospital waiting room and not spoken for a long time, and how he had reached for her hand and she had let him hold it, and how that had felt like the only honest moment they had shared in months. The way she used to say, "You're going to change the world, Leon," like she meant it, like she saw something real. He let himself feel all of it. 4 minutes. That was all he allowed. Then he stood up, straightened his jacket, picked up the petition, and walked down the hall to Diana's office. He set the document on her desk without a word. Diana read it. Her face didn't change, but something moved behind her eyes. A quick, controlled flash of something that was not quite surprise. She set it down. She looked at him. "What do you need?" "Nothing right now," Leon said. "We sign at 4. He picked the petition back up. "After that," he said, "I need you to help me think." Diana nodded. That was the end of the conversation. Leon was almost back to the hallway when he heard the second page hit the floor. It had slipped from inside the envelope when he picked the petition up. A single sheet that had been folded behind the main document, tucked flat, easy to miss. He bent down and picked it up. Financial affidavit. Petitioner's estimated marital asset disclosure. He stood in the doorway of Diana's office and read it. It was a standard form. Name of business. Estimated current value. His eyes moved down the page without hurry, the way they always moved through documents. Then they stopped. Carter Logistics Group. Estimated value. $1,200,000. $1.2 million. He read the number twice. Not because he didn't understand it, because he wanted to make sure he was understanding it exactly right. She had filed it under oath. This was not a rough guess scribbled on a napkin. This was a sworn legal document, submitted to a court, signed with her name. And the number she had sworn to was the same number he had mentioned once. 2 years ago. Sitting at their kitchen table during the worst quarter the firm had seen since its second year. 2 clients gone in the same month. Cash flow tight enough that he'd skipped his own salary for 6 weeks. He had said the firm's probably valued around 1.2 right now, and she had said, "That's still something," and that had been the end of it. She had been saving that number ever since. She had built her entire legal strategy around a figure he mentioned during a bad week, in a bad quarter, 2 years ago. She had never asked again. She had never followed up. She had simply taken that one offhand number and carried it forward in her mind as the truth of what he was worth. Frozen there, unchanging, like a photograph she never looked at closely enough to notice, had gone blurry. She had filed believing she was leaving a man with a struggling small firm, a man with a ceiling. She had no idea the contract was sitting 11 floors above her, tabbed and notarized, waiting for 4 o'clock. Leon stood very still in that doorway. The thing moving through him was not anger. Not yet. It was something quieter and more precise than anger. A kind of cold, total clarity. The same feeling he got in a negotiation when the other side revealed, without meaning to, exactly what they didn't know. It was the feeling of a door swinging open onto a room full of information, all of it useful, none of it wasted. He folded the affidavit once, in half, and slid it into the inside pocket of his jacket. Then he smoothed the front of his jacket with both hands. Then he walked back down the hall. Diana was at the conference room table when he returned, reviewing the execution copies one final time. She looked up when he came in. Her eyes went to his face, that same quick, thorough read, and he watched her file whatever she found there without saying a word about it. He sat down. He pulled the contract toward him. "Where were we?" he said. "Exhibit C," Diana said. "Warehousing capacity thresholds." "Right." He found the page. "Walk me through it." She did. He listened. He asked questions. He caught a minor formatting inconsistency in a table on page 47 and flagged it for correction. He drank the rest of his coffee. He reviewed the signatory lines one last time to make certain every name was spelled correctly, every title was accurate, every date field was properly formatted. He gave the Viridian deal everything he had, every hour that remained, every ounce of the focus he had been building toward for 31 months. Whatever had detonated inside him that morning stayed exactly where he had put it, behind the door, out of the way, waiting. There would be time for it later. There was work to do first. At 4 o'clock, Leon walked into the signing room. Viridian's executive team was already seated, 5 of them across the table, in the particular posture of people who have been waiting for an important moment and are trying not to show it. Leon had seen that posture before. He knew what it meant. It meant they wanted this as much as he did. He greeted each of them by name. He shook hands. He sat down. He was composed, precise, present in the way that only a man with nothing left to perform could be. No nerves, no self-consciousness, no gap between the person in the room and the person he actually was. 31 months had burned all of that away. What remained was just Leon. Just the work. Just the moment. The contracts were passed. Pens were uncapped. Leon signed his name 4 times across 4 sets of documents. Clean, unhurried, the same signature he had practiced exactly 0 times, because it was just his name, and he had always known who he was. $500 million. Exclusive. 10 years. He set the pen down. Someone across the table exhaled. Someone else laughed. The specific, released laugh of a person who has been holding their breath for a long time. Hands were shaken. Words were said. Leon received all of it with warmth and without theater. And then he excused himself. The executive bathroom down the hall was empty and quiet. Leon stood at the sink and ran cold water over both hands. He watched the water move across his knuckles. He watched it drain. He looked at himself in the mirror. "She filed this morning," he said. Once, just to hear it, just to make it real, in a room where no one else could see what it cost him. He turned off the water. He dried his hands. He straightened his tie. Then he walked back down the hall, into the room full of people who were celebrating the best day of his professional life. And he smiled. And it was not entirely performance, because the day was still what it was, and he had still built what he had built. And nobody in that room, including Brielle, could take a single second of it back. He checked into a hotel that night. He didn't go back to the house on Sutton Drive. He didn't call Brielle. He didn't open his email or look at his phone except once, to call his father. Walter Carter picked up on the second ring, the way he always did. "Hey, son." "Hey, Pop." A pause. Walter had always known how to wait. "She filed, Pop." A long silence on the other end. Not the silence of a man who didn't know what to say, but the silence of a man who was choosing his words the way he chose everything, carefully, without waste. "I know you're hurting." "I am," Leon said. "What are you going to do?" Leon sat on the edge of the hotel bed. He looked at the blank legal pad on the nightstand. He'd bought it at the gift shop downstairs, force of habit. He looked at the pen beside it. "I'm going to be smart," he said. Another pause. Then Walter said quietly and with complete certainty, "Then you already won." The call ended shortly after. Leon sat still for a moment. Then he reached over, picked up the legal pad, and uncapped the pen. He opened to the first page. He began to take notes. Leon woke at 5:51 a.m. The legal pad was on the pillow beside him, which meant he had fallen asleep writing. He sat up and looked at it. 4 pages of notes, front and back. His handwriting got smaller toward the bottom of each page. It always did when he was tired and trying to keep thinking. He could still read all of it. He set the pad on the nightstand. He stood up. He went to the bathroom and showered and dressed the same way he did every morning. Methodical, unhurried, one thing at a time. He knotted his tie in the mirror. He looked at himself the same way he always did, the same check he always ran. He looked fine. That would have to be enough. He stopped for coffee on the way in. He did not call Brielle. He had not called her the night before, and he had not responded to the petition, and he did not intend to do either of those things yet. Not because he was afraid of the conversation, because he was not ready to have it. And Leon Carter did not have important conversations before he was ready. Diana was already at the office when he arrived. She was at her desk with a mug in one hand and a contract summary in the other, and she looked up when he came in the same way she always did. That quick, thorough read. "Morning," she said. "Morning." He set his coffee down on the edge of her desk. "I need a matrimonial attorney." She nodded once, like she had been expecting it. "The best high-asset divorce litigator in Atlanta, who Brielle has never heard of," he said. I want someone operating in a completely different professional circle than Hargrove and Banks. Okay, Diana said. That was all. She didn't ask questions. She didn't say she was sorry, which Leon appreciated more than she probably knew. She had a name by noon. Carla Odom's office was on the 14th floor of a building in Midtown, clean and uncluttered, in the way that spoke not of minimalism, but of precision. A woman who did not keep anything around that wasn't useful. She was 56, with close-cropped natural hair and reading glasses she wore low on her nose. She shook Leon's hand once, firmly, and gestured to the chair across from her desk. She read the divorce petition first, then the financial affidavit. She read both of them the way Leon read contracts. Slowly, completely, without comment. When she finished, she set them down, took off her glasses, and looked at him. "Who coached her on the filing structure?" she asked. Leon said nothing. He let the question sit. Carla nodded slightly, as though his silence was its own kind of answer. Whoever advised her knew enough about asset concealment strategy to get her moving. She didn't come up with the affidavit framing on her own. She tapped the document with one finger. But they don't practice matrimonial law. The structure has gaps a family law specialist would never leave. They were working from a playbook they half understood. "What does that mean for her position?" Leon asked. "It means they moved her before what they believed was a liquidity event, trying to capture the lowest possible asset picture." Carla paused, without knowing one had already occurred. The room was very quiet. "I'd like you to prepare a full response," Leon said. "Everything, complete financial disclosure, the Viridian contract, all of it. But I want you to hold it. Don't file anything yet." Carla looked at him for a moment. "How long?" "Until I tell you." She considered that. Then she nodded, not reluctantly, but with the measured respect of one strategist recognizing another. "I can do that." Leon reached into his jacket and set the folded affidavit on her desk. "I'd also like our forensic accountant to run a full audit of every shared account against what she's submitted here. I want to know if the picture she gave the court matches the actual numbers." Carla picked it up. "That's standard in high-asset cases." "I know," Leon said. "I want it done anyway." She wrote something on the notepad beside her keyboard. "I'll get you a name." Leon stood. He buttoned his jacket. "Ms. Odom, I'm not in a hurry. I want to be clear about that. I'm not looking to move fast. I'm looking to move right." Carla looked up at him over her glasses. "Mr. Carter," she said evenly, "those are my two favorite words." He drove to Memphis that evening. 4 hours down I-20, windows up, music off. Just Leon and the road, and the particular quiet of a man who has too many thoughts to let any sound compete with them. Walter's house was a small brick rancher on the east side, the same house Leon had grown up in, the same porch with the same 2 chairs, the same yellow light above the front door. Leon had offered to buy him something bigger, twice. Walter had declined, twice, without making Leon feel bad about asking. He was already on the porch when Leon pulled up, like he'd been expecting him. Leon sat in the other chair. He accepted the cup of coffee Walter handed him without asking if he wanted one. He looked out at the street for a moment, the familiar quiet of it, the oak tree at the curb that had been there his whole life. Then he told his father everything. The deal, the petition, the $1.2 million on the affidavit. All of it, start to finish, without rushing. Walter sat across from him and listened without interrupting once. When Leon finished, Walter was quiet for a moment. He turned his coffee cup in both hands. "You know your grandfather worked that dock for 32 years, he said finally. Leon looked over at him. "Never got promoted past floor supervisor. Never made real money." Walter paused. "You know what he always told me?" He looked at his son. He said, "Walter, the ones who underestimate you are doing you a favor. Let 'em sleep." Leon sat with that. He finished his coffee. He hugged his father on the porch. He got back in the car. He drove back to Atlanta that night, and somewhere around the Georgia state line, the direction he had been carrying since yesterday morning became something harder and cleaner and more certain than direction. It became a decision. The message came in at 7:04 a.m. Leon saw it when he sat down at his desk with his coffee. A voicemail from Raymond Chu, the forensic accountant Carla had referred him to 3 days ago. The message was short. Raymond's voice was calm but direct, the kind of calm that meant the news was not. "Mr. Carter, I've completed the preliminary review. I'd like you to come in as soon as you can. This morning, if possible." Leon listened to it once. Then he picked up the phone and called Diana. "Clear my morning," he said. She didn't ask why. Raymond Chu's office was in a nondescript building in Buckhead, the kind of place that did not advertise what happened inside it. Raymond himself was a small, precise man in his early 50s, with wire-rimmed glasses and the unhurried manner of someone who had delivered uncomfortable information to powerful people many times before and had learned exactly how to do it. He shook Leon's hand. He shook Diana's hand. He gestured them both toward the conference table, where a printed report was already laid out. Clean columns, highlighted rows, a stack of supporting documents clipped neatly behind it. He did not waste time. "I flagged the first transfer inside 6 hours," Raymond said, sitting across from them. He turned the report so it faced Leon. "Once I saw the pattern, the rest came quickly." Leon looked down at the first page. "Over the past 26 months," Raymond said, "someone with access to your joint accounts has been making outbound transfers. Small amounts. Never the same interval. Never the same destination account twice." He adjusted his glasses. "Amounts ranging from $800 to $11,000. Always just under thresholds that would trigger automatic bank review." Leon was still looking at the page. "The transfers route through a series of intermediary accounts before landing in a private account held in the name of Brielle Renata Whitfield." Raymond paused. Her maiden name. The room was very quiet. "Total transferred," Raymond said, "is $214,000. Leon did not move. He read the summary line again. Then he turned to the next page, which showed the timeline, a column of dates running down the left side of the sheet, going back 26 months. He did the math without meaning to. 26 months ago was March. March, 2.5 years ago. He and Brielle had lost the pregnancy in January of that year. By March, she was still saying she wanted to try again. She had sat across from him at the kitchen table and said, "I'm not ready to give up on this, Leon." He had reached across and taken her hand. He remembered the exact weight of that moment, the way it felt like grief turning, slowly, into something that might become hope again. The first transfer on Raymond's sheet was dated March 14th. Leon looked at it for a long moment. He did not let himself look at it the way he wanted to. He looked at it the way he looked at everything, straight on, without flinching, gathering what it meant without letting it decide anything for him yet. He reached down. He picked up the summary sheet. He folded it once, cleanly, along the center. He placed it in his jacket pocket. "Okay," he said. That was all. Diana, seated beside him, said nothing. She didn't look at him. She looked at the table. But he could feel what was in the room. The particular weight of someone who had watched a person absorb a blow and was choosing, out of respect, not to name what they just witnessed. Raymond gave them both a moment before he spoke again. "The supporting documentation is all there. Account records, routing information, the destination account registration. It's clean. It'll hold up." "Thank you," Leon said. He stood. He buttoned his jacket. "I'll be in touch." He drove directly to Carla Odom's office. He said nothing in the elevator. He said nothing in the lobby. The receptionist showed him back without asking, and Carla looked up from her desk when he came in and read something in his face that made her set down her pen without a word. Leon sat down. He reached into his jacket and placed the folded summary sheet on her desk. She unfolded it. She read it. She pulled the full report from the envelope he set beside it and went through it page by page, the same way she read everything, slowly, completely, without comment. When she finished, she set it down. "This directly contradicts the sworn affidavit," she said. "I know." It becomes Exhibit A in a counterclaim. Combined with the Viridian disclosure, her financial position in this proceeding, she stopped. "It collapses." "I know," Leon said again. "I want you to hold it. Don't file anything yet. I want the complete picture before anything moves." Carla looked at him. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." She nodded. She placed the report in a folder and wrote something on the tab. Leon watched her do it. Then he stood, buttoned his jacket again, and shook her hand. He rode the elevator down alone. He walked to his car. He got in. He sat there for a long moment with both hands resting in his lap, the engine off, the parking garage quiet around him. He did not call anyone. He simply drove. Leon was 3 steps from his office door when Diana appeared in the hallway. "Come in here first," she said. It wasn't a question. He followed her into her office and she closed the door behind them, something she only did when the conversation needed walls around it. She moved to her desk, but didn't sit. She picked up a single sheet of paper and held it for a moment before she handed it to him. "I know who he is," she said. Leon took the sheet. The name at the top was Trevor Banks. There was a headshot pulled from a firm website. A polished man in his mid-40s, square jaw, the kind of smile that had been practiced in mirrors. Below the photo, his title, his firm, his bar membership date. Hargrove and Banks, LLC. The same firm printed on the return address of the envelope that had come to Leon's office 6 days ago. Leon read the page once. He set it down on Diana's desk with the same care he used setting down anything he intended to pick up again later. He looked at the headshot for another moment. Then he looked at Diana. "He's a partner there," Diana said. "Has been for 9 years. Corporate law. He handles some family matters for personal clients." She paused. "Brielle is apparently one of those personal clients." Leon said nothing. "He filed her petition himself," Diana said. "His signature is on the document." The room was quiet. "There's more," she said. She didn't soften it, which was one of the things Leon trusted most about her. "I have a contact, Priya Mehta. She's a litigator over at Caldwell and Ross. She and I have crossed paths a few times on the supply chain side. She reached out to me last night." Diana folded her hands. "Apparently, Trevor Banks has been talking. Not broadly. Quietly, at a bar, to a colleague. The kind of talking men like that do when they think the room is safe." "What did he say?" Diana's expression didn't change. "He described you as a guy who got lucky in logistics, but never really made it." Leon let those words sit in the air for a moment. He didn't react to them the way a man might who had never heard that kind of thing before. He reacted to them the way a man does who has heard that exact sentence, in different words, from different mouths, his entire life. He felt it. He catalogued it. He moved on. "Priya told you this because she knows you," Leon said. "She told me because she thought I should know," Diana said, "and because she was offended by it. I think she expected me to be more surprised than I was." Leon picked up Trevor's photo again. He looked at it for exactly as long as he needed to. Then he set it back down. "All right," he said. He called Carla Odom from his car at lunch. He didn't go back inside the office first. He just sat in the parking structure with the phone to his ear and waited for her to pick up. She answered on the second ring. "I have a question," Leon said. "What happens to an attorney who represents a client in a divorce proceeding while engaged in an undisclosed intimate relationship with that client?" There was a pause. Not long, barely 2 seconds. And when Carla spoke again, her voice carried something just beneath the surface. Not quite warmth, but something close to the professional equivalent of recognition. like she had just identified the shape of what she was dealing with. "Disbarment proceedings," she said, "and the divorce petition itself becomes subject to a full challenge on conflict of interest grounds. Depending on what can be documented, everything he filed on her behalf is potentially compromised." "Potentially," Leon said. "With documentation, categorically," she said. "Hold it," Leon said. "Don't file anything yet, but have it ready." "It'll be ready," Carla said. He thanked her and hung up. The email from Diana arrived at 7:18 that evening. Leon was at his hotel desk with a cup of coffee and his legal pad when his phone lit up. The subject line was blank. The body of the email contained no text, only a scanned PDF attachment. He opened it. It was a sealed ethics complaint filed in 2019 with the Georgia State Bar. The complainant's name was redacted. The respondent's name was not. Trevor Allen Banks. Leon read the summary. A prior client. A woman navigating a business dissolution. An undisclosed personal relationship that developed during the representation. A private settlement reached before formal proceedings concluded. The complaint sealed. The matter closed. No public record. No consequences. He had done this before. He had found a woman at a point of transition. Unsteady. Trusting. In need of guidance. And he had made himself indispensable to her in every way he could. Leon read the document to the end. Then he set his phone down on the desk, face down, and picked up his legal pad. He did not write Trevor's name. He was done thinking about Trevor Banks. Trevor was not what this was about. He uncapped his pen and went back to work. The forensic accountant's name was Gerald Moss. He was 61 years old, wore the same brown cardigan every time Leon had ever met with him, and had a habit of spreading his pages across a conference table in a specific order before he said a single word, left to right. Largest number first. Leon had learned not to rush him. He sat across from Gerald in the small conference room off the main hallway and watched the pages go down. 1, 2, 3. Gerald smoothed each one flat with the side of his hand before moving to the next. When the last page was down, he pulled out the chair across from Leon and sat. "I found something in the early transfers," Gerald said. "The ones from 27 months ago. Before the pattern fully established itself." Leon looked at the first page. Gerald tapped a column near the bottom. 2 transactions, Gerald said. Different dates, 11 days apart. Combined total of $31,000. He slid a second page across. They didn't go directly into the maiden name account like the later transfers. They moved through an intermediate account first. He paused. "That intermediate account is co-signed." Leon looked up. Gerald held his gaze. Phyllis Annette Whitfield, Brielle's mother. The room didn't change. The fluorescent light above them still hummed the same low hum it always did. The coffee in Leon's cup was still hot. Nothing moved. Leon looked back down at the page. He traced the column with one finger without touching the paper. $31,000. 26 months ago. Which meant Phyllis had been involved at the start, not after the decision was made, not as a sounding board after Brielle had already committed. At the beginning, when the account was first being seeded, when the first dollars were being quietly moved out of a marriage that was, at that same moment, still trying to put itself back together after the worst thing that had happened to them. He did the arithmetic without wanting to. 26 months ago, Brielle had still been saying she wanted to try again. 26 months ago, Phyllis had been co-signing account transfers. He picked up the page and read it from the top. Then he set it down, squared it with the edge of the table, and looked at Gerald. "Is this documented thoroughly enough to present in a legal proceeding?" Leon asked. "Yes," Gerald said. "Account records, transaction timestamps, both signatures on the co-signed documentation. It's clean." "Add it to the full report," Leon said. "Same format as the rest. I'll have the final version to you by end of day." Leon nodded. He picked up his coffee. He drank it. Gerald began collecting his pages. Phyllis Whitfield had a voice that carried a particular kind of warmth, the practiced kind, the kind that came from decades of knowing exactly how warmth was supposed to sound in the rooms she moved through. Leon had always known the difference between that warmth and the real thing. He had never said so. He thought about her now while he drove back to the office. Not with anger, exactly. With the specific, quiet grief of a man recalibrating a long-held picture. He had respected Phyllis. He had been patient with her condescension because he understood where it came from, and because he believed, for a long time, that she would eventually see him clearly. She had seen him clearly. She had simply decided that clearly wasn't enough. Gerald's final report arrived at 4:47 p.m. Leon read every page. When he was finished, he placed the report into the expandable folder on his desk, the one that now held the divorce petition, the financial affidavit, the original forensic summary, Trevor's headshot, Trevor's 2019 ethics complaint, and Carla Odom's preliminary response framework. He pressed the flap closed. He set it beside his legal pad. He thought about Brielle at 29, standing in the kitchen of that first apartment, in the blue robe she'd had since college, telling him he was going to change the world. He thought about whether she had believed it then. He thought that maybe she had. He thought that somewhere between then and 26 months ago, she had quietly revised her verdict, and instead of telling him, she had called her mother. His phone rang at 6:15. Carla Odom. "I have everything I need," Carla said. "The counterclaim is fully built. The financial disclosure is ready, with the Viridian contract attached." A brief pause. "If you want to move, we can file Monday." "Not yet," Leon said. "What are you waiting for?" "One more thing," he said. "I want to meet with her first, in person, before any of this lands on her. I want her to hear it from me, not from a filing." Carla was quiet for a moment. "That's not typically how I'd recommend doing this." "I know," Leon said. "Prepare the full disclosure anyway. Everything. Hold the filing until I tell you." "Understood," she said. "It'll be ready." He thanked her and set the phone down. He opened the expandable folder one more time and looked at the pages inside without removing them. Then he closed it again. He reached for his legal pad, turned to a fresh page, and uncapped his pen. At the top of the page, he wrote 2 words: Saturday. Everything. Then he began. Leon was in his office by 6:10 a.m. The building was empty that early. Just the hum of the elevator down the hall and the faint sound of traffic beginning to build on the street below. He didn't turn on the overhead lights. He used the lamp on the corner of his desk, the small one with the brass base that had been with him since the first office, the one he'd rented by the month in a shared building on Peachtree Industrial. He opened his legal pad to the notes from the night before. 11 pages. Dense. Margin notes bleeding into margin notes. Every piece of it mapped in the particular shorthand he had developed over 17 years of running a business where the wrong decision at the wrong moment could cost everything. He read through it once, slowly, the way he read a contract before signing. Then he read it again. By the time his coffee went cold, he had a sequence. 3 moves. In order. Nothing out of sequence. He called Carla at 8. She picked up on the second ring. He could hear papers in the background. She was already at her desk. "File the response," Leon said. "Today, everything we discussed. Full financial disclosure, Viridian contract attached, executed copy, the full value on the face of it. Nothing held back." "I'll have it submitted by noon," Carla said. "Banks will receive it as opposing counsel before end of business." "Good." "Leon." Carla's voice was even, but there was something underneath it, something close to satisfaction that she kept professionally contained. "When he opens that disclosure, his whole picture of this case changes." "I know," Leon said. "He advised her based on 1.2 million. "I know, Carla." A brief pause. "Filing at noon," she said. He thanked her and hung up. The second call went to Marcus Webb, VP of Communications at Viridian Distribution Partners. Marcus was efficient, well-organized, and had a deep investment in making the partnership roll out land as cleanly as possible. The press release had been drafted, approved, and sitting ready for 3 weeks. "Marcus," Leon said, "the announcement. I need it held." A brief pause. "How long?" "I'll give you a date by end of week." "Not long." "A few days, maybe a week. I need to confirm one thing on my end first." "Of course," Marcus said, without hesitation. Because Leon Carter was now Viridian's most important external partner, and Marcus Webb understood that completely. "Just say the word." "I will." "Thank you, Marcus." He set the phone down. 2 moves done. He waited until 10 o'clock for the third. He did not pick up the phone immediately. He sat for a moment with his hand resting flat on the desk beside it, looking at nothing in particular. At the middle distance, at the space between where he was and where Saturday would be. Then he picked it up and dialed Brielle's number. She answered on the 4th ring. Her voice was careful, measured. The voice of a woman who had been waiting for this call and had prepared for it. "Leon." "Hey," he said. His voice was calm, easy, almost. The tone of a man checking in, not a man who had spent the last 2 weeks building a case that was going to change everything she thought she knew. "I've been thinking. I'd like to meet before this goes further. In person. At the house." A short silence. He could hear her recalibrating. "Just to talk," he said. "Before the attorneys make it into something neither of us can control. Saturday morning, if that works." Another pause. Shorter this time. "Yeah," she said. "Okay, Saturday." She thought she heard something in his voice. She did. She just misread it. She heard the quiet. She heard the steadiness. She translated it as defeat, as the grief arriving late, as Leon finally catching up to what she had already processed and accepted weeks ago. She had been waiting for him to soften. She decided this was it. "Thank you," he said. "I'll see you then." He hung up. He reached for his legal pad, turned to a fresh page, uncapped his pen. At the top of the page, he wrote 2 words: Saturday. Everything. At 12:04 p.m., in a corner office on the 14th floor of a building in Midtown Atlanta, a paralegal dropped a legal envelope on Trevor Banks's desk. Trevor peeled it open without looking up from his other work. He had been expecting a routine response, a request for extension, maybe an initial counteroffer, the standard opening posture of an opposing counsel buying time for a client who was overmatched. He had seen it 100 times. He slid the pages out. Read the header. Carter Logistics Group. Viridian Distribution Partners. Exclusive Operations Management Contract. Executed value. Trevor Banks stopped reading. He looked at the number. He looked at it for a long time. Leon got there first. He parked at the curb instead of the garage. He didn't know exactly why. Some instinct told him not to pull too deep into the space, not to settle in. He sat in the car for a moment, looking at the house through the windshield. Red brick, black shutters, the dogwood in the front yard that Brielle had planted their second spring here and forgotten about by the third. 7 years in that house. He got out of the car. Inside, the rooms were exactly as he had left them 2 weeks ago. Same furniture, same smell, the particular mix of wood cleaner and the candles Brielle burned in the evenings, everything exactly where it had always been. He moved through the living room slowly, not the way a man moves through a house he is about to grieve, the way a man moves through a space he has already made peace with. He touched nothing. He just looked. He let himself see it clearly. What it was, what it had been, what it was not. He was not afraid of losing it. That surprised him. A little. He thought it might hurt more, standing here. But the fear was gone. He didn't know exactly when it had left. Somewhere between the hotel room and Memphis and the 12 pages of margin notes on his legal pad. The fear had quietly packed its things and gone, and what remained in its place was something steadier, something that didn't have a word for it yet. He went to the kitchen. He set two things on the table. The sealed manila envelope, the same one Carla Odom's assistant had couriered to him the evening before, one clean page inside, and 2 cups of coffee, poured from the machine he had turned on when he walked in, because he still knew where the beans were, and he still knew how she took it. He sat down. He waited. Brielle arrived at 10:15. He heard the key in the lock. She had kept her key, of course. He didn't move. He heard her heels on the hardwood in the entry hall. Then the pause. She was probably looking at the lamp he had left on in the living room, orienting herself. Then she appeared in the kitchen doorway. She was composed, well-dressed, the way she always was when she had prepared for something. Hair done. The kind of put-together that takes effort, but is designed to look effortless. She had a script. He could see it in the way she stood. The slight tilt of her chin, the particular arrangement of her expression. Soft but certain, prepared to receive his grief gracefully. She looked at him. He was sitting at the table with his coffee, straight-backed, looking back at her. The script shifted behind her eyes, just slightly. "Hey," she said. "Hey." He gestured to the second cup. "Sit down." She sat. She didn't touch the coffee. She folded her hands on the table and waited for him to begin. The way you wait when you already know how you want the conversation to go. He let a moment pass. Then, "In 11 years, did I ever lie to you about money?" She blinked. This was not the opening she had prepared for. "No. Did I ever hide an account from you? Miss a bill? Lose money on a bad investment that cost us? Leon? Just yes or no, Brielle?" She looked at him. "No." He nodded once. "I want you to remember you said that." He reached across the table and slid the manila envelope toward her. "Open it." She looked at the envelope, then at him. Then she broke the seal. 1 page, clean formatting. Carla Odom's office letterhead at the top. Carter Logistics Group, Viridian Distribution Partners. Exclusive Operations Management Contract. Executed value, $500,000. Brielle read it. Leon watched her read it. He watched the confusion move through her face first, the number not fitting against the picture she had carried. Then the calculation arrived, fast, because Brielle was sharp and always had been. She did the math in seconds. What this meant. What the affidavit she had filed under oath now looked like next to this number. What every conversation with Trevor about the settlement had been built on. And then, the timing. He watched it happen. The exact moment she understood when. Her eyes moved back up to the date on the page. Then she looked up at him, and he saw it. The full, specific weight of it landing on her all at once. She had filed 4 days before this was signed. She had been standing at the exit door of a marriage that was hours from becoming something she had never accounted for. And she had walked out 4 days too early, based on a number he had mentioned once during one bad quarter, 2 years ago. She had never asked again. "Leon," she started. He reached into the envelope and set 3 more documents on the table. Quietly, one at a time. The forensic summary, $214,000. The movement pattern across 26 months. The timeline document. The dates, the months that lined up against everything they had said to each other about trying again after the miscarriage. And last, the page showing the co-signed account. Phyllis Whitfield's name in black ink. He watched her absorb each one. He watched the last available story she could have told herself. "I made a mistake, but it was mine alone." Disappear completely. She looked up from the 3rd document. Her mouth opened. "I know why you're unhappy," she said. "I know the marriage wasn't—" "I'm not here to discuss the marriage," he said. His voice didn't rise. "And I'm not here to discuss Trevor. I'm here to make sure you understand your legal position before your attorney explains it to you, because his explanation is going to be complicated." She stopped. He looked at her directly. Did Trevor know about the Viridian deal when he advised you to file? She couldn't answer for a moment, but the answer was already written across everything that had happened in her face in the last 3 minutes. No, she said quietly. Then the man you trusted with your legal future advised you to move at the worst possible moment for you and the best possible moment for me, Leon said, using financial information 2 years out of date, while he was sleeping with you. He let that sit for exactly 1 second. That's who you chose. Brielle left 23 minutes after she arrived. She walked back through the living room, back down the entry hall. Leon heard the key in the lock a second time. Then the door. Then nothing. He sat at the kitchen table. The second cup of coffee, still full, untouched, sat across from where she had been. He looked at it for a moment. Then he picked up his own cup and finished it slowly, in the quiet, in the particular silence of a house that no longer had anything over him. He stood. He picked up his legal pad from the counter where he had set it when he came in. He walked back through the living room, past the lamp, past the furniture, past the dogwood visible through the front window. He walked out of the house on Sutton Drive. He did not look back. Monday came the way Leon preferred all important things to come. Quietly. He was at his desk by 7. Coffee on the left. Legal pad on the right. The same yellow kind he had used since his first Atlanta office, a single room above a tire shop on Piedmont Road, with a window that didn't fully close. He had written the first Carter Logistics Group proposal on a pad just like this one. He had written Saturday, everything, on one just like it too. Now he sat and worked. Emails, quarterly projections, a call with Diana at 7:30 about the Viridian onboarding timeline. Ordinary things. The kind of work that had always been the real foundation of everything. Not the big moments, but the steady accumulation of mornings exactly like this one. He gave the work his full attention. The city did the rest. At 9:04, Carla Odom's office filed the Conflict of Interest challenge with the Georgia State Bar. The filing was clean and complete. Everything attached, nothing exaggerated, nothing that needed to be. Leon's sworn statement. The documentation of Trevor's undisclosed relationship with Brielle during the period he served as her legal counsel, and the 2019 sealed ethics complaint, the prior client, the business dissolution, the private settlement that had bought Trevor Banks several more years of operating the way he operated. The bar opened a formal investigation before noon. Leon did not know the exact minute any of this happened. He was reviewing freight corridor projections when Diana knocked and let herself in. She set a single printed page on his desk without a word. He read it, nodded, set it to the side and went back to the projections. Trevor's senior partner called him at 9:47. By the accounts that reached Leon later, filtered through Carla's measured reporting, and one second-hand word from Diana's contact in Atlanta's legal community, it was not a long call. Senior partners at firms like Hargrove and Banks do not require length for conversations of this nature. They require only clarity. Trevor was removed from all active cases pending bar review. By noon, the partnership was over. The firm's name, Hargrove and Banks, became a quiet internal discussion before the week was out. The kind of discussion that ends with one name getting removed from the letterhead. The man who had described Leon Carter to a colleague over drinks as a guy who got lucky in logistics but never really made it, was now making calls from a personal cell, looking at sublease options and explaining himself to a bar investigator. Leon did not think about Trevor Banks beyond what was necessary. He never had. Trevor was not the point. Trevor was a consequence of his own construction, and the building had come down exactly the way buildings do when you remove the foundation. Brielle retained new counsel Tuesday morning, at her own expense, for the first time. Carla called Leon at 11 to report on the opening conversation with Brielle's new attorney. "How'd it go?" Leon asked. She was sober. Carla said. There was the faintest trace of something in her voice. Not cruelty, but the particular satisfaction of a professional who has watched an opposing position collapse under its own weight. Very sober. I think she had just finished reading the counterclaim exhibits before she called me. The $214,000. The 26-month movement pattern. Phyllis's co-signed account. All of it formally entered now. Real. Documented. Binding. The settlement she was expecting, Carla continued. Gone, Leon said. Gone, Carla confirmed. What remains is proportional to the legitimate duration of the marriage. Nothing more. Leon thanked her and ended the call. He stood at his office window for a moment, looking out over the city. The morning light was flat and silver, the kind that makes Atlanta look older than it is. He thought about the apartment he and Brielle couldn't afford 22 years ago. The way she had cried the night he landed his first real client. How genuine that had seemed. How long ago it was. He turned away from the window. He called Phyllis at 2:17 that afternoon. She picked up on the second ring. He could hear it in her voice immediately. She already knew something had shifted. Word had reached her, or Brielle had called, or she had simply felt it, the way you feel a structure settling when you helped build the thing. Leon, she said. Phyllis. He kept his voice level. Not cold, just clear. I wanted to call you myself before you heard it from anyone else. I thought you deserved that, he told her. Not everything. She already knew most of it from her own participation. But he told her what the $31,000 through her co-signed account now meant in a formal legal context. He told her what her involvement had cost Brielle's position. He told her where things stood. 6 minutes. He had not needed more. I always respected you, Phyllis, he said. I wanted you to hear this from me. He hung up. He did not know what she did after that. He didn't need to. The Viridian press release dropped Thursday morning. Carter Logistics Group secures historic $500 million Viridian partnership. Largest contract in black-owned consulting history. Wall Street Journal, Logistics section. 3 major black business publications running it same day. A national outlet had already reached out to Diana about a profile. Brielle was sitting in her new attorney's office when her phone lit up. She saw the headline. She saw Leon's name. She saw the number. The real number. The one that had been sitting on that kitchen table in a manila envelope on Saturday morning, while she tried to remember her script. Her attorney looked up from her desk, looked at Brielle's face, set her pen down. She gave her a moment. The moment was long. 14 months. Leon was awake before 6. He was always awake before 6. But the room was different now. The sounds were different. No distant traffic. No neighbor's alarm bleeding through a shared wall. Out here, past the edge of the city where the land opened up and the air smelled like red clay and pine, the mornings were quiet in a way that required getting used to. Leon had gotten used to it fast. He made coffee in a kitchen he had chosen himself. Every detail of it deliberate. Not expensive. Just right. The kind of right that comes from knowing, finally, exactly what you actually want without having to account for someone else's idea of what it should look like. He poured 2 cups, one for himself, one for the man down the hall. Walter Carter used the room most weekends now. Sometimes he stayed longer. Leon had stopped counting nights and started thinking of it simply as his father lived here too, more or less, which was the way it probably should have been arranged a long time ago. The room had a window that faced east. Walter had mentioned this approvingly once and never mentioned it again. That was the full extent of his interior decorating opinion, and Leon had taken it as high praise. Diana Shaw ran Carter Logistics Group, president. Day-to-day operations, staff, contracts, the full weight of it, hers. Leon had moved into the chairman role 6 months after the Viridian ink dried, and the transition had been so clean, so obviously correct, that neither of them had needed to say much about it. Diana had been running the real machinery of the company for years. The title change was just the building catching up to its actual foundation. Leon still worked. He always would. But the shape of the work had changed. The foundation had come first as an idea on a legal pad. A different legal pad, a fresh one, started the week after he walked out of the house on Sutton Drive for the last time. He had not announced it. He had not held a press event or issued a statement. He had simply built it the way he built everything. Methodically, quietly, one piece at a time. Capital access, mentorship, young black entrepreneurs in logistics and supply chain who needed someone to tell them that what they were building was real, that the absence of inherited money or institutional backing was not a ceiling, that patience was not weakness, and stillness was not the same thing as standing still. People found it. That was how he knew he had built the right thing. A brief accounting, because the record deserved to be complete. Trevor Banks practiced solo now, out of a sublease on the west side. The bar proceedings were ongoing, slow, as these things are, but moving in one direction only. The Polish was gone. The name was gone from the letterhead. The colleague he had confided in at a bar, the one who had described Leon, within hearing of someone who knew Diana, as a man who had never really made it, had since made a point of not returning Trevor's calls. Brielle had settled. She lived in a condo in Midtown. She was working. She was getting on with it, which took its own particular kind of courage, and Leon did not begrudge her that. He was not interested in her being destroyed. He never had been. She had made a calculated bet on a version of him that no longer existed, had, in fact, stopped existing long before she noticed, and she lived inside that knowledge now without anyone needing to explain it to her. That was enough. That was the entire point. Phyllis had not spoken to Brielle about any of it since the morning Leon called. Some silences say everything. He carried both cups out to the porch as the sky was shifting from dark to gray to the first pale suggestion of morning light. Walter was already there. This did not surprise Leon. His father had spent 40 years waking before the freight dock required it, and the habit had never left him. He sat in the far chair with his hands resting easy on the armrest, watching the tree line the way men who have worked long and hard all their lives watch things when they finally have time to simply watch. Leon handed him his cup, sat down in the chair beside him. The land stretched out in front of them, quiet, unhurried, the kind of morning that did not ask anything from you. They sat that way for a while, the way men who don't need to fill silence with noise can sit. 2 cups of coffee between them, as there had always been. Then Walter said, "You good?" He asked it the way he asked everything, simply, without performance, meaning exactly what he said and nothing else. Leon considered it, honestly, the way he did everything. He thought about the legal pad, the hotel room, the cold water over his hands in the Viridian bathroom. She filed this morning. He thought about the porch in Memphis, and the dock, and his grandfather's 32 years of quiet, unbothered dignity. He thought about the manila envelope sliding across a kitchen table. He thought about Diana's face the morning all of it finally landed. He thought about this porch, this morning, this cup. "Yeah, Pop," Leon said. "I'm good." He meant it. That was the entire point. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.